I'm Kim Montagnese. I love vintage stuff. I also love to save money. So today I'm going to show you some of my ideas to kind of get you started on your own. So I brought with me a bunch of vintage stuff, a bunch of cheap stuff. So let me show you what I've got here. The very first jacket had a great line. I got this at the resale store. These were already here. I added the buttons. I added the silk neckties. I added the lace to cover up the raw edge because I'm kind of lazy also, so I didn't want to finish that edge. I covered the lace with these little buttons. On the back side, I added some recycled blue jeans. I embroidered this great big queen bee on top of it, and then put buttons again to cover the raw edge because I'm kind of lazy that way. This jacket had really great lines, but it had great big modern snaps underneath. So I covered the snaps with felt, and these are all findings out of the scrapbook section of the craft store. So these are all things that you would normally use on paper. Some of this trim is actually drapery samples that I found on the Florida Convention Center. So I added that to the cuff. I also added my vintage buttons on the cuff. On some of the buttons that have the shank back, I tied a ribbon around it so they wouldn't bobble around. On the back here, there's another embroidery, and these are lace trims. This is a piece of drapery. This was actually a t-shirt I found at the resale store, and again, some more drapery. So I made a little peplum out of that. This jacket, again, it had really cute lines, so I didn't change too much. There's the original underneath, put the neckties on top. Then I had some leftover prairie points from another project. So I just put them under the collar, around the edge of the pocket, and then did some embroidery on the back. But you can see the jacket itself was really cute to start with, so I had some good material to work with. This jacket is a big wool jacket. I had some leftover neckties, but not quite enough to go all the way around. So I added some lace tablecloth, some great big giant buttons. Then on the back, you can see here where the two joined together, covered up that raw edge with some more lace. And I put my big buttons here and did some couching, some machine couching on the back of that jacket. So let me show you how I start out with a project like this. So I go to the resale store with a pocket full of dough, and I shop the store, and what I'm looking for is something like this, a really nice quality fabric. It can't be all grubby, but I'm looking for something that has a lot of design opportunity. I'm looking for things that have nice lines, nice clean lines that I can sew on. Here's another example. I love this one. It has a lot of nice detail that I can work with, and it still has a lot of design opportunities. I especially love this one because of the cuff. I thought the buttons looked a little bit vintage. I can tuck some lace into here and then have some coming out the bottom of the cuff too. So I'm going to show you some more of that later. Here's another one that I picked up. It's a little bit different. But again, it has a really cute detail here. I can have things coming out of the pockets. I can add length to the sleeve, put little buckles on the sleeve. I actually found this in the parking lot at the hotel. How do you like that? So I'm going to show you a couple of these real quick here. I brought a bunch of stuff to show you. So some of this stuff has actually been removed from another garment. So if I have a piece that looks like this, I would probably want to tuck that. I would want to tuck this under the collar maybe, like that. Add some buttons to hold that down. And again, maybe do that around the cuff. Or on the back, we can pull some of these lace pieces. This is a great piece right here. And if you don't like all of the parts of the lace, you can always cut them off. You can always paint this lace. So I usually start out and just start composing. I wrinkle it up, add some stuff, see how I like it. have a little place here where I can put a big button. I think you can kind of see how this is starting to come together a little bit. On this denim jacket, the plan was I wasn't real sure what I want to do with this one yet, but I love the prairie points, and I have a lot of them left from other projects. So I usually just save them up, save my prairie points. I audition them all the time. I can add ribbon to that. Then I could just grab a couple of these buttons, add them along the edges, and just start composing. So just to give you a few little ideas on kind of how to get started, but I'd like to show you how I do the prairie points. So let's take this off of here. Okay, so we have these prairie points. Here's another version here, a little bit different. So to start your prairie points, these were left over from a quilt I was making, and I cut way too many. So I'm going to fold this in half, fold it in half again, and make this little scale. I'm going to give it a little pin, and then we're going to go over to the machine. Now at home I would do many dozens of these all at the same time. So we'll go to the machine. Some of these are already started, so I'll slide that right underneath there. And I'll take the new one, lay it right on top, put my foot down, and I'm just going to speed that up a little bit. When I get to the next one, I'll just slip it right in there. You can make yards and yards and yards of this. So this trim I use quite a bit around the collars, around necklines, around cuffs. It's a really useful little tool. Okay, so now we have prairie points that we can use as our trim. I can add that under the collar like I did on the one behind me there. I can tuck it into the edges of this cuff. Or on this side, we could also have it, we could use these alternate ones. We could poke them out of the pocket. We can put these under the collar. And as always, we can add buttons. We can put another little layer of lace underneath that to poke out. And I also want to mention, if you don't have a lot of vintage stuff at your disposal, it's perfectly okay. You can paint it, you can dye it, you can spray paint, you can tea dye things, you can coffee dye things, so you can make it look antique. So I just want to show you some of the other things I brought with me today. Over here, I have all of these antique buttons that I've been saving up. I keep them in a special box. I collect all these keys. I brought even some zipper pulls. Again, I found this in the parking lot at the hotel. It probably fell off of some luggage somewhere. I find these at craft shows, all of these different really cool things. Some of these, like the buttons that have the shank button, you have to attach them by hand. Something like this, I sew on by hand also, and then I attach beads to them as well. These are actually buttons, these little krakens, and I usually attach them onto felt. And because the holes are so small, I can put a bead through through the, I put a bead through the thread and then attach it that way. Some of them get glued on. Some of these are just made out of old jewelry that I found, so I put them on jewelry and made new jewelry out of them. These are gonna end up on some jackets underneath the lace, maybe over the top of the lace. So I have one more jacket that I brought. So this one's almost done. Let me just give you a quick look at that one. The front of this, again, it's a great jacket. I love the neckline on it. Lots of buttons, lots of little lace detail. But the back part I'm still working on. Again, there's my favorite bee. I did the embroidery on a piece of upholstery fabric, and now I'm in the process of adding the buttons. I'm sewing these all on the sewing machine. This is a piece of drapery, and this is just a ribbon. And then I'm gonna be putting some of my ephemera on here to finish it off. So I hope that gave you just a little bit of insight and some inspiration so that you can go to the wholesale stores and some of the secondhand stores and make some for yourself. So happy hunting.